If you care about Israel, pay attention, because the country you admire is on the line. That powerful sentence was in the opening paragraph of Tom Friedman's New York Times column this week. So how is Israel on the line? Tom Friedman joins me now. His most recent book is Thank You for Being Late, an optimist's guide to thriving in an age of accelerations. Tom, pleasure to have you on.
Great to be with you, Fareed.
You argue that this is not really just about differences in policy, attitudes even towards the Palestinians or the West Bank. This is about the future of Israel's democracy if Benjamin Netanyahu gets reelected. Explain what you mean.
Well, Fareed, there are two things that are intersecting here. One is that Netanyahu was basically charged with fraud and breach of trust by Israel's attorney general, an attorney general he nominated. And so that is a very serious charge. Netanyahu could be going to jail. That's on one track. On the other track, Israel had an election in April. And before that election, a lot of Israelis suspected that Netanyahu, if he won, was going to build a coalition. And the conditions of joining that coalition would be that the members agree that once they get their majority in the Israeli parliament, they will pass a law that says a sitting prime minister cannot be indicted. And when the Israeli Supreme Court would strike that law down as illegal, they would then pass another law that would say the Knesset is making the Supreme Court subservient to its will. It would, in effect, turn Israel into a Jewish banana republic. In the end, though, what happened was the only parties who would kind of go for that banana republic deal were right-wing, zealot religious parties and ultra-Orthodox parties. And they had Netanyahu over a barrel. He was going to go to jail, so they could raise their demands. And what were their demands? They want annexation of the West Bank, basically. So in the end, Netanyahu actually couldn't strike a deal because he lost so many other potential allies who didn't want to go along with this banana republic solution. Now we have another election coming September 17th. This time, everyone knows now what Netanyahu is up to. If Israel were to elect Netanyahu and he were to put together a government that basically traded some form of creeping annexation in the West Bank to save the prime minister from criminal charges, every friend of Israel in the world, Jewish and non-Jewish, would have to make an ethical choice. Are you ready to continue to support an Israel that has turned into a Jewish banana republic? And I tell you, Fareed, that question will rip apart every synagogue, every Jewish institution, every friendly forum toward Israel on any college campus around the world. Something very big is at stake here. This election is not a rerun of the last election. This election is about the core issues of Israel's identity as a Jewish democracy.
What you're describing in terms of the proposal, is part of what would seem like a disturbing trend. The kind of law you're describing, this is the kind of thing Erdogan has tried to do in Turkey. This is the kind of thing Viktor Orban has tried to do in Hungary when he celebrated the idea of being not a liberal democracy, but an illiberal democracy.
Exactly, and you wrote the book on that, Fareed, and it's extremely important. This global trend where you have these majoritarian leaders, they get in power, and then what they do once they're in power is they attack all the independent institutions that can curb their power, the courts, the media, and civil society institutions, and Netanyahu is going down that in a textbook way. It's extremely dangerous, and unfortunately, our administration, the Trump administration, has been willing to be a willing accomplice to this trend.
What does the landscape now look like with Ehud Barak, the former prime minister, jumping in? Does that change things much?
It changes them in this sense, Fareed. In the last election, there was a conspiracy of silence between the main center-left party led by Benny Gantz called Blue and White and Netanyahu's party. Netanyahu's party didn't want to talk about their creeping annexation in the West Bank, and Blue and White didn't want to talk about it either because they thought it would alienate voters. They wanted to just focus on Bibi's corruption. Enter Ehud Barak, a former Israeli prime minister, now 77 years old, and the one a titan of Israeli politics who Netanyahu is really afraid of. They're really peers. And he's come in and basically put everything on the table that I've just described. He said, no, we got to talk about, he's called his party the Democracy Party. People have to understand that Israel's democracy is at stake here, and the threat we are talking about is every bit the equal of the threat of Iranian nuclear weapons. I think one shouldn't focus on Barak. The question is, can whatever party he forms, Fareed, help catalyze the whole center left in Israel, particularly the Labor Party, Meretz, which is a more left party, and maybe a new Barak party, into a hardcore that will get every left of center vote, then align with blue and white to get every center vote, enough that they can put together a coalition or even a national unity government where maybe part of Likud breaks off, joins with the center and the center left, because they say, we do not want to be a Jewish banana republic. Something so big is at stake in this election, Fareed. This is about the core identity of Israel as a Jewish democracy.
Tom Friedman, pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Fareed.